Listen, before we begin, I have to put this up here right in front so that there's no misunderstanding. Nothing presented in this recorded recovery seminar is intended to be, listen, nor does it constitute diagnosis of anything of any kind or medical anything of any kind. I don't do that. Others do that. What I do is present some things from another way of looking at them to see if they can be of some help. I put another spin, another angle outside the box for those who struggle. So I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to help them. See if in this that I presented to those in attendance on that day and how I presented it to them, you too can find some new and helpful understanding. This is an outside-the-box, another approach recovery seminar for those alcoholics and addicts who struggle with their sobriety, many of whom have relapsed again, and yes, yet again. See if it helps you. Here's the seminar. There's a lot of reasons why people turn to alcohol and drugs. One size does not fit all. A lot of things hidden in that haunted house that the human being is. Things that haunt you, things that you did that haunt you, the guilt that haunts you. Some people are haunted by the fact that they have no idea where they belong in this world or what the purpose in this world is. That something's missing somewhere and something's wrong with something and they got to do something about something. So when you use and you get high, son, you don't care about something. Isn't that true? Or anything. You're gone. So you are the haunted house. And people go to AA, they go to NA, they work the steps with a sponsor, and they use again, and then someone says, well, perhaps you didn't really work the steps properly. The thing that touches what's in the haunted house is treatment. Treatment, where someone can see down into your heart and hear your silent scream, and maybe they know the secret that's in that haunted house that you are, that haunts you, the secret that you run from, that you hide from, that you use to escape from. This is all I've said so far. How many people sitting here can see themselves in what I just said? Come on. So the haunted house is not the house on the corner. The haunted house is you. And there's many hauntings in there. Some of the hauntings in there, as I said, where people don't know who they are, where they're going, even what the purpose of their life is. Others are haunted, listen, by the fact that life has passed them by in some manner or form, and they can't get back whatever it was they lost when life passed them by. And that haunts people. Oh, when that haunts you, that's all hidden in the dark inside of the haunted house that you are, because you don't tell yourself that. You just feel something. Watch. You feel something, but you don't tell yourself because you have made a mask that hides what haunts you from me and from everybody else. But the danger of the mask is that it also hides you from you, and you don't see what's going on. You hide it. The silence that holds that secret destroys your life. You use to get away from it, and it doesn't matter how much you use to get away from it. How come if I use to get away from it, you say, how come it's still there? Because it's never been dealt with. The haunting in the house that you are is in the spirit of your mind. And until you start to open that up and invite somebody in to the haunted house that you are, to begin to help you, listen, to look at what's hidden in that haunted house, what's in there that you're afraid to look at, what's in there that you don't like to look at. And until that happens, in a form of treatment, many forms of treatment, listen, and someone in there to look at it, to begin to turn the light on inside the haunted house that you are. You're going to live with it. You're going to use again and again. And somebody says, did you work the steps? Yeah, you worked the steps with a sponsor. The young woman, she used again, and she used again, and she worked the steps, and she used again. And she cried because her house was haunted. She said she wakes up at night and she cries, and she said, Daddy, Daddy, you shouldn't do that to your little girl. What happened to her back then haunted her. That had to be taken away in treatment, where someone, a therapist, not only with a diploma on the wall, but a therapist with a gift from God to hear her silent scream, a therapist that could look into her heart. And she was molested as a young girl. She needed to go into treatment because that haunted her. And she cried in the front row of a seminar. She cried because this touched her. And she said, but when I spoke about it, they said I was sitting in a pity pot. They said get over it, grow up. I was feeling sorry for myself. Let me interrupt here. Listen, it's wrong. It's just wrong to say things like that to a person who's hurting and who seeks help to ease the pain. Fortunately, not everyone says things like that. And those who do, listen, they don't really mean it, but they're just misguided. It's just wrong. The people are seeking help to ease the pain, and someone is saying things like that are no good. Back to the seminar. They said I was sitting in a pity pot. They said get over it, grow up. I was feeling sorry for myself. And so I said, you have a right to feel sorry for yourself. What happened was a tragedy. And you can sit on a pity pot sometimes, but you don't sit there forever. What's going to take that away is when you go into treatment to begin to deal with that. She cried further because she said she thought she was worthless. When I did a seminar called Changing the Image in the Mirror, the image that she had of herself was that she was dirty and she was worthless. Her house was haunted. She, for the first time, a light started to come on in that haunted house, that she wasn't dirty, she wasn't worthless. She had worth, she had value. She was a beautiful young woman who had a right to a good life. And she needed to now be directed by someone into qualified healthcare professional help that began to help her. But if she didn't open that up, the house would have stayed haunted. How many can see that? Haunted and dark. And you know, in a haunted house, when it's dark, when that's in there, all you see is the darkness of that. You don't see another way. You don't see anything else. The house is dark. But if over there in the corner I have a jar with a firefly, the second the firefly sparks, for the first time in the dark, there's something else. For the first time in the dark, there's something else. And she saw, for the first time, there was something else. The house wasn't as dark anymore. And she said, I could see in the reflection of his words when he spoke, when he said what he said in the haunted house, I saw in the reflection of his words that I could be somebody. And the other young woman cried in that same seminar. Her mother screamed at her when she was a child. You little bitch, you're an abortion, it should have happened. I should have flushed you down the toilet. You be careful who you ever tell is sitting on a pity pot. And you be careful who you tell forget their past. If something in your past is haunting you, you don't forget your past. You examine that's what's haunting you. And in therapy and in treatment with somebody who's qualified, they take the haunting out of that. The haunting was taken out of that with that young woman. And later when somebody else came along with the same story, her life was the message for whoever it was God sent to her, and she could help them. Haunted house. Yeah, many stories. Now, hands here. How many here have a story? How many here are a haunted house? Let me see hands. The things that have happened, the things that happen in jail, the things that go on in jail, in the prison system. Oh yeah, that can haunt people. You think it's all about alcohol and drugs? The alcohol and drugs becomes an escape for some people where the house is haunted enough and the pain and the emotional pain is enough. Man, you can't wait to use to make the pain go away. Hands? You see it? And that in treatment is where you deal with that. The young boy. Young man, he was 30-some years old. Listen, came out of prison, used, wound up in a facility I was speaking. And he heard the haunted house. And he wanted to talk to me later. So we talked, we chatted about the haunted house. And he's telling me when he was a little boy, he and his brother were foster children. And he said, they kept us in the basement. We slept on a mattress in the basement. We were little kids. And I used to hang on the doorknob, he said, in the dark, because I was afraid of the mice. I would hang on the doorknob. Until I was so tired, he said. That's a tough guy, come out of prison. You know, in prison, you can't show your feelings. So he says, I hang on the doorknob, he says, and I keep my feet off the floor because I was afraid of the mice. And he says to me, you know, we slept on a mattress, he said. And he said, you know, I was afraid of the dark. I would sleep sometimes on the top step. And he said, my foster father knew that. See, he says, and he turns the light off in the room at night, where I've got a light on in the room, and he turns the light off, and the light's coming under the door from the hallway. He said, I would sleep on the top step, Rev. He said, so because I was afraid of the dark. My foster father would roll me down the stairs, he said. And I was just a little boy, and he said, you know, we was hungry, Rev. They didn't feed us hardly anything, and my little brother and I were hungry. And he said in the basement, he'd been out. This is a tough guy out of prison. He's there. He's safe now. He heard the haunted house. He heard this. He heard that. He's saying to me now, I wanted to talk to you, Rev. I got to ask you. And he says, we was hungry. We tore we would tear pages out of the magazine, he said, and we would eat the pages of the food we liked. He says, how could I do that to little kids? When he was hurt and damaged as a child. Hurt people, damage people. And so he was angry and he wanted to fight the world. Anybody identify with that? So when you sit here and I talk here today about a haunted house, some don't want to raise their hands. Some just do this, you know, fold their arms like that. It's okay. But I know one thing, that my words are clear and the meaning of my words are clear. And I'm doing this out of a caring for you. That if you don't open that up somewhere and let somebody into that haunted house that you are, you will use again and again to escape. The haunting grows stronger. When these things happen, like the young girl with her father, like the young girl whose mother said you're an abortion, it didn't happen. Listen to me now. Please listen. And the next thing is that this is said, I've heard it, been around a while, that what you have to do in order to get over this is to forgive the people who did it. Now you think of that statement. How do you forgive when you're a young girl waking up in the night crying, Daddy, you shouldn't do that to your little girl. She's now a young woman and she's remembering. How do you forgive when your mother told you you are an abortion, it didn't happen, and you should have been flushed down the toilet, and you begin to realize that that's who you thought you were, and you use drugs, and once you got into the drug culture, you can find men everywhere on every street corner, young ladies, who will treat you like an abortion, it didn't happen, and they will flush you down the toilet every week. And then they say, you have to forgive. How? Now you have guilt. Because you can't forgive. You can't forgive when you're still remembering, when your heart is still crying, when you're still hurting. And now you got guilt because you can't forgive. How's that? Add to the burden. So I'll tell you something to take some of the haunting out of your house. Put forgiveness on the back burner for these things, okay? That isn't the issue. The issue is to heal the wounds. The first thing is to heal the wound, to heal the heart that hurts, to heal the soul that is crying. First, you heal it. And forgiveness is not an event, and forgiveness is not something you decide to do or you should do because they said you should do. Forgiveness happens when the wounds are healed. The portal of forgiveness opens, and forgiveness happens. And when the forgiveness happens, at whatever time it happens, after the wounds are healed. You want to hang on to the wounds forever? Go ahead. The people who did it will occupy 7 out of 10 floors in your head, rent-free forever. You get into help to heal the wounds, and forgiveness happens. Forgiveness sets you free. Forgiveness doesn't change them. And when they are forgiven by you, when it happens, that doesn't condone what they did. That doesn't condone what they did. And secondly, I suggest when you forgive them, you don't resume fellowship with them, since forgiveness hasn't changed them. Make sense? So to take the haunting out of your house, as long as the haunting is in there, it's like an itch. Listen to this. It's like an itch for which there's no scratch. You see it? Haunts you. The haunted house. Not the house on the corner. The haunted house in the corner of your mind. And the mask that you create. Never mind that you are the great pretender. You make a mask that hides you from you. Hides you from you because the mask, behind the mask, hides the you in the haunted house that you are. And as you begin to bring the things out, not blurted everywhere, depends on what the haunting is. In my own life, the hauntings, I'll tell you, I had to go into therapy. Oh yeah, for the haunting that was there from the time I was a child. And it's gone. The haunting is gone. And the portal of forgiveness opened, and I forgave. I did forgive. And now when people cross my path who have had the same experiences that I had, my life is the message for those God sends to me. You see what I'm saying? And when you open it up like this, and what happens is people sitting in an audience, when you begin this, you ask for show of hands. So you get a few hands, and then you ask another question somewhere, and you get a few hands. But I'll tell you what, towards the end of a seminar, when you realize what you didn't see happening was that while I spoke, I was taking off my mask so that you could see who I was. And as I took off my mask, it became more comfortable for you to take yours off. How did you take your mask off? You raised your hand when I asked a question. That meant that you acknowledged the truth of your own humanity. The haunted house, not on the corner. And that haunted house, somebody got to come in there. Just like when I did a seminar called All Alone in a Dangerous Neighborhood. The dangerous neighborhood was your mind, a dangerous neighborhood to be all alone in. Man, that's where it goes. So the haunted house that you are, you shouldn't be in there in the dark all alone. Someone got to come in there with a light. What kind of light? It's called enlightenment. And when you are enlightened about things, then you begin to see things differently. Because in the dark, you can't see nothing. And gradually you begin to see there's a piece here that was wrapped up there, that was here. Maybe the monkey on my back isn't a monkey. Maybe it's a gorilla. Maybe the gorilla on my back is guilt and shame. And the removing of the guilt and shame that takes place in treatment as you go through that. Because when you are an alcoholic or an addict, everybody has done some things they hope nobody finds out about. Let me see hands on this one, baby. There they all go up. Whoa, yeah. You need to deal with that to set yourself free. And that's what treatment is about. But these things that are hidden in the corner of the haunted house, man, we want to hide them at all costs. But what I did here today was I shined a light on them. So even though you're sitting over there, and even though you're sitting back there, the words of enlightenment reached you all the way back there in the audience. And you said, whoa, who is this guy? He's in my head. He's in my life. I don't know. Am I? My words are, how could that be? I'm pretty well read, you know. You mean books? Not the kind of books you talk about. I read the people as I walked out there as a minister for those years, among the people, with the people. I read someone like you, and I read someone like you, and I looked in the little girl's eyes, and she couldn't get off heroin, and I saw the hollow, and as I spoke with her, I began to read her, and her, listen, the silent scream in her heart. And so you could say, I'm a man well read, a different kind of man well read. Because the books that I read the ones with type on the page, but I read the ones that had 2 feet and a silent scream in their heart. Living books. You see that? And my words when I speak are like a book that you can read. How many read this book today? Very good. Whoa. Hey, if you found this Outside the Box recovery seminar that I just presented helpful to you, then share it. Share it with friends on Facebook and on Twitter and on your other social media accounts. You may help someone else's recovery by doing that. Well, that's the seminar. It's important, however, to understand that it's not offered as a replacement for your participation in the treatment and self-help programs that are available. It's offered to you for the purpose of opening new understanding and to encourage you to get into the appropriate self-help and treatment programs that are available for your life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you around.